Hello again. So now we'll start the real work of our virtual environment. After installing the ESXi in the different hosts and creating the different machine that we need, now it's time to manage our hosts and our virtual machine of the environment. So to do that, we get inside the vCenter through our web client, and the first step that we need is to create a data center. So as you know, in your environment or in your company, of course, you have a data center, and some big company, for example, have two or three data center. For example, data center in the Washington DC, another data center in the New York, another data center in another country, for example, in the Canada, etc., in the Australia. It's in different location. You have different data center, and they work together for the same campaign. And of course, there are situations that you manage them all together from one vCenter. So to do that, we need to organize our environment by creating the first data center. So if we click on the vcenter.vmlab.ma to start, for example, try to add a host, we don't have any option to add our host to start manage them. This option is only available when we have a data center. So as you see here, we have new data center, new folder, deploy OVF template. If you remember the OVF, export system log, assign license, setting, vCenter height availability, and other option. Of course, the first step that you do before creating the data center is to assign a license. That means in the real environment, you have a license for the vCenter. So you need to add this license to the vCenter so you can use it for lifetime. So we click assign license, and here you see we have only the evaluation license. If you have a paid license, you can add it right here. So click add license, and here you add a list of the license key that you have, one per line. If you have, for example, license for the vMotion, license for height availability, etc., the different license that you have, you can paste them right here one by one and click next. So you automatically will assign a license for each of the feature that you have the key for it. So this is an important step in the real environment. You need to do it, but in our lab, we don't need it. We only work with the evaluation version. So we click cancel and cancel. So then we need to create our first data center. We click new data center, and we need to give it a name for this data center. So for example, I will create a data center for my country, for example, Morocco. That means I have a data center, call it Morocco, and another data center in another country that I will add it later, just to get you the big idea of the data center. So okay, it will create it automatically. As you will see here, is it the data center, call it Morocco. For example, you can call it, for example, data center for mail server, another data center for database, another data center for another service, etc. It's in relation about the environment that you work on it. So the next step is to add a host. Now we are able to add hosts. If you click on this one, you don't have any option that's called it add host, but when you click on the data center, you have another option that's called it add host, add cluster, etc., and some other option. We're going to discover them one by one when we need it. So let's just concentrate on add a host. Now we need to add our host that we want to manage through this vCenter. If we click add host, here he asks you for the name or the IP address of the host. If you remember, when we create the host ESXi1, we give it the name ESXi1 and the IP address with the number 10. But of course, we don't have the DNS with the name ESXi, so we just make it simple. We're going to use the IP address of the host ESXi1. So the IP address 192.168.1 and the number 10 for the ESXi1. You see the location will be in the Morocco. The type is should be ESXi. That means this vCenter can't manage a host with another hypervisor. It only accepts the ESXi hypervisor. If we click right here to add host with hypervisor other than ESXi, see the vCenter host get UI support page to learn how to install and configure vCenter host get UI. That means if you want to manage a host with a different hypervisor than the ESXi, you need to use the host get UI. But of course, our course concentrates only on the VMware, so we don't need to use any other hypervisor. So we click next. Now he asks you for the username and the password. This process, you do it only one time. When you connect a host, you add the IP address, the user, and the password only one time, and it will be saved in the vCenter for every time you need to manage this host. So root the password of the ESXi number 1 to get login to this one. This security alert that the certificate store of the vCenter server cannot verify the certificate. It's not a problem. Of course, we click yes. Now he gives you a list of the virtual machine that we have inside this host. The name, it's the number 10. The vendor, that means the brand of the host that have this ESXi. The model, that means the version of the host. And the version is ESXi 6.5 that we have in this virtual machine. Of course, if you have a host with old version of the ESXi, for example, ESXi 5 or 5.5 or version 6, you will see the version right here. So this is just a quick overview to know is this is the right one that you want to add. You see information about the virtual machine. Is this machine have a relation about this data center? So it's okay. Then you click next. Then he asks you to assign a license for this ESXi. He found that this ESXi have only an evaluation license, so he asks you to add a license to this host. You can add it right here as we show you in the preview. Of course, we don't need it in our lab. Then next, now it asks you for lockdown mode. If you remember, when we try to manage the ESXi directly, you found an option that's called lockdown. If you remember it, this option can be managed from this place. That means when enable lockdown mode, prevent remote user from logging directly into this host. The host will only be accessible through the local console or an authorized centralized management application. That means if we enable this lockdown mode, no one can connect to the host directly through using the IP address with the number 10. That means when we manage the host in the previous section, we connect directly to the host. But if you enable the lockdown mode, no one can connect to the host through the IP address. He needs to get access to the host directly or use the vCenter to get access to that host. If you are unsure what to do, leave lockdown mode disabled. You can configure lockdown mode later by editing security profile in host setting. So you see we have normal and we have strict. That means even the direct console user interface service is stopped. It's only managed by the vCenter. So we leave it disabled. We'll see it later. Next, then the VM location. It will be in the Morocco. That means I want to add it in Morocco. If you have more data center, you will see a list of the data center here to choose which one do you want to add this host in. Then ready to complete, a quick overview and finish. And our first host will be added. As you see, standalone host, Morocco, and the percentage, information about the user who do this action, and start time, etc. So it will take a little time to load the information about the ESXi inside the vCenter. So here is it, our first host added inside our data center. So the same for all your hosts that exist. You click add host. You type the IP address of the host in this situation the second ESXi that we have. Next, the root and the password. It's very simple. Yes, because we don't have a certificate. Then we have the different virtual machine inside this host, the information about the host. Next, we assign a license for that host if we still not add it yet. Next, we leave the lockdown mode disabled. Yes. Next, to choose the data center that we want, we can choose different data center. Next, a quick overview about it, and finish to complete the process. So here is it, the second one. It's still loaded and will give us information about it. So the task is completed successfully, and now we have two hosts inside our data center ready to be managed through the vCenter. Of course, if you have more than two ESXi hosts, you need to add them all inside this data center or two different data center, etc. It's in relation about the environment that you have. So see you in the next video to know more about